Hi Dolly dearies, and welcome to another video. Now today we're doing something a bit different. Yes, another collaboration. But this one is not 100% suitable for my younger viewers. So if you are a younger viewer, I'd recommend going to my channel page and checking out one of my many other videos. Now that all of the kiddos have left, today we are doing a fun collaboration, a video game collaboration where we are sexifying all the video game characters. This collaboration is with Ooak Nara, Unidolls, Valkitty's World, Muñequita Cat, Situate Creations, Kiabi Suguru, Harley's Dollhouse, H. Arley Crafts, Blurred Colors Art, Artisan, and hosted by the wonderful His Name is Akin. Now for this video game character collaboration, we all had to choose a character. I decided to go with Sammy Lawrence from the Bendy and the Ink Machine series. I think that he's a pretty cool character, and you know, he's walking around shirtless, so it's less costume to make. For this doll, I decided that I want to make him a bit more unique, and show off some more of my skills. He'd be half transformation with like, how I imagine the ink to be taking over him. But with that thought in mind, let's get started with the video. For this doll, we're going to be using this Nathan doll. I think that the markings that he has on him in his face will be really interesting to put some paint on to be like the inky transformation. But to start, we have to get rid of all of his hair, including the pesky little tail. To do this, I take a pair of sharp scissors and snip the hair close to the scalp. And with his suitable buzz cut, we can get to removing his head. To do this, I heat it up with a hairdryer, but you can also use boiling water to pull it off and not break the neck peg. Which I ended up doing anyway. But it's fine, only half of it's broken, so I'm sure that he'll turn out fine. But now we have to remove all of the gunk from inside his head. To do this, I take my pair of needle nose pliers and scrape around to disroot all of the plugs and pull them out. The pile's always so sticky and weird. Why are these in doll heads? Then again, why am I taking them apart? But of course, we've got to change him up. So, to make him more muscly, I take a marker and mark out areas where I can saw him apart. I divide his body into segments which I can stitch back together. And now, he's all sawed apart, poor thing. I also found that he had a weird thing to keep his tail in place. But we can remove that with some pliers, because it will get in the way of the next step for the process. For the next step, we're going to have to reassemble him. We've got all of his parts laid out, but it's now just trying to proportion them correctly to make him look super duper buff and strong. With these laid out, I then took a very fine drill to drill small holes into the side and bottom of his torso. This way I can use wire to stitch everything back together. With all of the holes, I thread through some thin but sturdy wire and loop them through the other holes so that we have a kind of base. I also stick some wire down the middle to keep everything in place with hot glue. But with him all stitched together and looking suitably like an eldritch horror, we can get on to the next step, which is his head. For his head, I simply took some ears which I stole off a Frankie doll and glued them onto the side. The creases will be covered up when we add paint. But with them all stitched together, we can now fill in all of the gaps. But I mean, just look at him next to a normal version of himself. It's quite a big difference. We can take some tinfoil as our cheap substitute as to not fill him with so much expensive clay. And also to keep him light, because clay is quite heavy and I don't want this doll to weigh down my entire shelf. So I take tinfoil and force it into all of the gaps using my thumbs. And now we can take some cheap air dry clay to fill in the majority of the gaps. Wow, very strong. But with all of that dry, we can go in with our nicer clay, our epoxy sculpt, which I'm going to use to give him some very, very defined muscles. Which unfortunately I had no idea how to do.
What the fuck is that?
But with plenty of help from Google, we eventually got there, giving him suitable pecs, a six-pack, and making him look all around super duper buff. For my first time sculpting muscles, I don't think it's too bad. But of course, we've got to give him a, sussy, wussy, bulgy, ooh. To do this, I just take a small blob of epoxy sculpt and press it into the groin area. Not half bad, I don't think. We've also thickened up his thighs and given him a big ol' thick booty. But with all of our clay dry, we can get on to sanding him. To do this, I just take a small scrap of sandpaper and start buffing away at all of the most uneven bits and trying to smooth out the transition of clay to plastic. And with that all smoothed out, we're going to cheat a bit and use a can of spray paint. With the spray paint on as a base, I mix up a quick yellowish colour similar to the one seen in the Bendy games and cover his body with it. I also cover all of his accessories and a piece of card for his face. Not half bad. And to make all of the muscles and definition really pop, we're going to be taking some pastels to it, shoving pastels into all of the creases and gaps, and then taking some white paint and smearing it across as highlights. Now we can seal everything in with a coat of Mr. Super Clear. But as I said, we're going to be making mid-transformation, so I'm breaking out the black 3.0 paint. It looks so weird in paint palettes, like a literal void. What I end up doing is taking my paintbrush and kind of haphazardly painting swirls and spikes across the side of his body, which I kind of imagine as ink corrupting him and slowly eating away at his body. I think it looks pretty cool. It looks almost like thorns. But with that done, we can get started on his face. Since he is from a game which is about cartoons, I thought it'd be good to keep his face quite simple and cartoony. So nothing too complex, very block colours, minimal shading, and everything quite blocky and defined. With pencils not taking exceptionally well to the paint, I end up going in with my gouache paints, brightening the whites of his eyes with a slightly grey and yellowed tone, before blocking in chunks of grey for his singular iris, which is the one not overtaken by ink. I also go and find the outside of his eyes with my black gouache paint. Due to it not being quite as dark and as matte as the black 3.0, it still stands out over it. Taking some white gouache paint, I dot in highlights on both of the eyes. And using a dark brown, I add in some depth to his nostrils and nose. super simple face up done, we can seal it in with a coat of Mr. Super Clear. And we can begin on his hair. To do this, I coat his scalp in black paint. And since I have the paintbrushes out, I add some high gloss varnish to his eyes. Now for the hair, we're going to reattach his head to the body. To do this, I just gently squeeze the temples and twist the head back and forth. Not too bad, right? Everything links up pretty well, except for the drip of black paint down his back, but we can ignore that. Now for the hair, since I don't want to reroute it and crack all of the paint, I take the hair which I took from this doll and simply glue it onto his head. Not too shabby, right? But of course, since your boy is so dummy thick, we've got to make him some custom trousers with a pattern which I'm gonna have to make up as I go. You can see that I drew out a normal trouser pattern and widened it significantly. I sew together the side seam of the trousers, and as well as the middle seams and the crotch seam. And with that all sewn, we can turn it inside out. I also added some belt loops which can function as a holder for his axe. Not too shabby, but I'd just like to ask, what lunatic wears white jeans into an ink factory? But haphazardly gluing together some straps and one that can go across his back to hold his mask, his simple outfit is actually looking pretty good. But of course we need to add the splatters of ink, so I take those outside and throw paint everywhere. But his outfit is done. I paint this old axe prop that I made a while back with some nail polish to make the ink super shiny. I'm not sure why I decided to have the ink shiny here and not on his body, but oh well. But now we can go about getting him dressed. And after that suitable struggle, which will happen off camera, he's looking pretty good. And he's done. Who are you going to pick to play as? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to go and check out all of my collaborators. Links to their channels will be in the description box. This doll was super duper fun to make, and a really good adventure into sculpting muscles. While I'm not very good at it yet, I think at some point in the far future I might actually be able to do this properly. Nonetheless, this was a super fun project and a great chance to work with so many other amazing artists. If you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe even share it with a friend. And maybe leave a comment about who you think I should make into a video game character. But as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you all in the next video. Bye!